I have a genuine question. Why did we get a scene like this? When a scene like this exists already? The difference between both is night and day. The show version looks like a cheap version of the video game. What's crazier though is that the show literally had the dialogue, source material, and everything one would need to recreate a scene perfectly, yet they still managed to fumble it. If you're new to this channel and aren't subscribed yet, I really hope I can earn your subscription, as 99% of you watching aren't subscribed yet. Be part of that 1% and subscribe now. The Last of Us is the first video game adaptation from Sony as a PlayStation exclusive, and while sure Uncharted was in production hell for years, The Last of Us was the first release, and it was clear why it was the choice. It's a story-driven game with one of the best stories in gaming, so it was a good exclusive to start with, but also risky considering how much The Last of Us fans value the story and characters. Now, around the time they started marketing and advertising The Last of Us, most of us expected a gigantic flop of a video game adaptation considering the history of these things. Yes, I'm looking at you, Netflix's Resident Evil. But surprisingly, we got a faithful adaptation with material respecting the lore and the show answering some questions the game had left open. But as time passed and we got the second season of The Last of Us, huge issues started to emerge. Not only so, the more I hear about Sony's intentions with future TV show adaptations, like the God of War show, the more I start to question their existence and whether they even make sense to begin with. As my channel name suggests, my biggest question to Sony is why? Why do we need one-on-one adaptations? Why do we even need to adapt video games at all? Now, the obvious answer is money. The Last of Us and the Uncharted movie made a good amount of profit. That's a motivator to begin with, but the approach Sony is taking just doesn't make any sense. Now, as a huge PlayStation exclusive fan and PlayStation in general, I'm very much aware that PlayStation games are memed by many with the claims that they're basically movie games with barely any gameplay. I've seen this statement over and over, and this sentiment exists because PlayStation exclusives genuinely have some of the best looking, written, and directed stories in the industry, to a degree that every cutscene mimics a movie and at times looks even better. Obviously not graphically, but some scenes genuinely look better in direction, in the soundtrack, and in acting compared to other movies. Now personally, I disagree that these games are movie games. I mean, The Last of Us 2 has excellent survival gameplay. Another example, God of War Ragnarok has some of the best combat in the industry, and so on. But the point is that we have cutscenes like this. Why do we need a whole live-action recreation to scenes that look quite realistic, are well acted, directed, and written? The motion capture is the best in the industry. You can see every feeling, every wrinkle, every emotion. It's not like The Last of Us is a game from the 2000s with outdated cutscenes. No, Naughty Dog arguably has the best cutscenes in gaming. There is absolutely no reason to recreate these scenes, and as shown at the start of the video, the recreation of these scenes can result with worse final results. Just take another look at how much better this scene was in the game compared to the show.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everybody I have cared for has either died or left me. Everybody fucking except for you! So don't tell me that I'd be safe with somebody else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
Troy Baker, who plays Joel, and Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie, give a much better and more natural performance. Now, I'm not saying Pedro Pascal isn't great, he is, but recreating an iconic scene with different actors, especially Bella Ramsey as Ellie, who I think looks nothing like the game model, just set up the scene for failure. It feels like one of these homemade YouTube low-budget scenes where two best friends imitate their favorite scenes from the game. Another issue is that the show follows the exact same story of the games with some minor changes here and there. My issue isn't that they're being faithful. No, usually being faithful to source material is a good thing. But the thing is, we've seen all of this before. As a fan of The Last of Us, there is absolutely nothing new the show provides besides additional lore and backstory. While they are appreciated, they aren't worth watching a downgraded series recreation for. Personally, I would have loved to see a different approach. Maybe give us a what-if situation, a plot with the same characters and alternative storylines. And if that would be straying too far, then maybe fully new storylines, things that were teased in the games but didn't have time to be fleshed out. Use the universe's lore to explore different sides of the world. One of my favorite shows of all time, The Walking Dead, is based on comics, and while the writers are faithful to the overall arcs, there are major changes that keep you excited. In The Last of Us case, well, that doesn't really exist. Unfortunately, these same issues seem to be on the horizon with the God of War TV show. We've only gotten one screenshot, but it's already under fire for inaccuracies in Kratos' look, from the style of the beard to the wrong eye color and the general atmosphere of the image. It has this weird AI feel, and gamers are completely valid here. Not only so, from what the casting is hinting at, it looks like we are getting another one-to-one recreation, with Odin being cast and so on. So I ask again, why are we getting a story that's already been told in a medium that is so similar to a show? Now look, while I can't say if the show aims to expand the lore and make meaningful changes, but just judging by the only series we have, which is The Last of Us, it's likely that we end up getting another downgraded same version of the games. As much as I love Ryan Hurst, who played Thor in the games, Beta in The Walking Dead, and Opie in Sons of Anarchy, he can't carry the show as Kratos, just as Pedro Pascal couldn't carry The Last of Us. While the Uncharted movie is a very flawed movie, I appreciate how the directors attempted something new. While keeping the same characters such as Nate and Sully, they gave us a fresh story with those characters, borrowing elements of the games and infusing them with their own unique new story. I'm not necessarily saying that I'd like all video game adaptations to do this, but I'd definitely appreciate different writing decisions, and I'd like them to make it clear that these adaptations will have differences, and they're not just one-on-one adaptations. That way they can avoid controversy while also exploring and experimenting more. Since Sony wants to stick to one-on-one adaptations, well, one of the biggest issues with adapting games faithfully is the risk of messing it up, and that's what happened with The Last of Us Season 2. Now yes, The Last of Us 2 has one of the most controversial stories in gaming, but even those who enjoyed the game's story despised the show's story and its execution. Now this was the case because the main writer and director of the games, Neil Druckmann, wasn't leading the second season, but Craig Mazin was. He's very well known for his masterpiece series Chernobyl, which is critically acclaimed. But the issue here is he doesn't know and understand the characters as Neil does, so we got a mess of a second season. I mean, if you're going to adapt for a TV show, you have to do it right, or don't do it at all. The issue here is this will likely keep happening because the writers that work on the games are different from the writers that work on the TV show. So the original vision you have from the game writer will not be the same as the writer on the TV show. I mean, even Neil Druckmann, who worked on the first season of the show, had to leave in the second and now has no connection with the third season simply because he has to go work in Naughty Dog, the game company. So this is going to be an issue going forward. I never really understood the reason for these adaptations. Profit aside, as a fan of PlayStation games, there is not much to enjoy here. The games do nearly everything better, and I'd much rather get sequels to my favorite games than have Sony waste that money on worse versions of the games. This isn't the case of adapting comics like The Walking Dead or books like Game of Thrones. We will always compare these shows to their video game counterparts, and since the games always come out first, we form an attachment with the video game forms, stories, and characters, so we are almost always bound to prefer the original over the adaptations. I'm really not sure how the future of these shows will be, but if they stick to the same plan they currently have, well, it will cause problems. I mean, it already is.